welcome to the Strong Girl Squad podcast, the place where we talk about building strong bodies, strong minds, and unapologetically powerful lives. Now, I have been to two events recently. The most recent one was 2 days ago, and it has encouraged me to record my podcasts. Whether I'll do it every week, I'm not sure, but I'm pushing through and getting out of my comfort zone. The other one was last weekend, okay? So I went, and this is the one I want to talk about, I went to the Breaking the Cycle with Dr. Louise Newson talk. And I didn't actually agree with all of it, and I think that is important to talk about because I believe we're at a point right now where there is a lot of noise around perimenopause, hormones, HRT, and not all of it is that helpful. Some of it's empowering, some of it's oversimplified, and some of it is just a little bit incomplete. So I want to break down what I took from the event, what I agreed with, what maybe I didn't, and layer in a little bit of my experience compared to what the science says as well. So before I get into my opinions, I want to give you context. At 44, I went to my GP because I genuinely felt like I was losing my shit, basically. I was losing myself and who I was in a really very real and very unsettling way, okay? I was dealing with what I can only describe as severe anxiety, especially social anxiety. Okay, so it wasn't just stress, it wasn't just a little bit overwhelmed. It was anxiety that stopped me doing things. Social situations felt extremely overwhelming. I was crying over things that didn't make sense, like getting stuck in roadworks. I had paranoia, jealousy, intrusive thoughts. I couldn't make any decisions. My brain just was not working the way that it used to. I was forgetful. I was walking into rooms not knowing why I was there, losing words mid-sentence, picking up my phone, having no idea what I went in to do. I remember my husband dropped me off at Tesco's. He just parked up. I ran in. I bought yogurt. That is literally all I bought. I was not there long. I came out and I didn't know where he was. And I phoned him and I was like, "Where are you?" He was like, "Exactly where I dropped you." I was like, "But where is that?" And I literally had forgotten where he'd dropped me. Thankfully, I laughed rather than cried. My cycles were all over the place. I had longer, heavier periods. I was bleeding for weeks at a time, feeling absolutely exhausted. And mentally, I felt really flat, really low. I had no motivation to train, no real enjoyment in anything. And that just wasn't me. And sadly, it didn't just stay in my own head. It started affecting my relationships. I lost friendships during that time. People thought I'd changed, thought I was being difficult. And yeah, maybe at times I was, but I did keep saying, I don't feel like myself and I don't actually like who I am right now. And when you're saying that out loud and people still don't hear you, still don't understand you, and just kind of turn on you, that it gets really, really isolating. So I went to my GP with all of this, with other symptoms as well, like burning mouth syndrome, which is actually something that I'm struggling with quite a lot at the moment. And it's where the tip of my tongue is just on fire. But I was just told I was too young for perimenopause and that they wouldn't consider HRT until I was having hot flushes. Now, I know that perimenopause can start in your early 40s, sometimes earlier, and the NHS recognises that diagnosis should be based on symptoms, not just age or blood tests. And the hot flushes, they are common, but they're not universal. And I even said to the GP, I said, I played innocent. So does everybody get hot flushes then? And she said yes. But research suggests that around 70 to 80% of women experience them, which means a significant number don't. So using that as a requirement before even having a conversation, it is not on. And this is why the conversation around women being overlooked in healthcare really does matter, okay? Because I have lived it. But where I started to feel a little bit uncomfortable at the event was how quickly everything was reduced to one explanation, which was misogyny. And I don't believe that this is all about misogyny. Do I think women's health has historically been under-researched and at times dismissed? Yes. Do I think there are real gaps in understanding and bias that needs addressing? Absolutely. But I do not think it serves women to reduce everything to a single explanation, because when we do that, we stop looking at the full picture, the biology, the research gaps, the education, the communication, and yes, sometimes poor clinical practice. And that's where I think we risk losing the nuance in this conversation. So do I think bias exists in medicine? Yes. Historically, women have been underrepresented in clinical trials. Symptoms have been dismissed, conditions misunderstood, and that is a real issue. But when everything gets explained through that one lens of misogyny, we lose that nuance, and then we stop thinking critically. So yes, there are gaps, but again, that's where we really have to look at everything. And yes, also there are parts of HRT history that should make you feel a little bit uncomfortable. Early HRT or hormone therapy, particularly in the mid-20th century, was marketed in ways that were deeply problematic, okay? There were narratives around keeping women youthful, feminine, more pleasant. HRT was originally marketed to men, and that is not okay? But we also have to zoom out. Medicine as a whole at that time was far less advanced, and treatments across all areas were more experimental, less regulated, and often wrong. So we have to be careful not to take modern understanding and apply it retrospectively without context. Now, fast forward today, modern HRT is very different, okay? We now have what are often referred to as body identical hormones. These include estradiol, a form of estrogen, and progesterone. And these are structurally identical to the hormones your body produces, okay? They're often derived from plant sources such as soy, but that doesn't mean natural in the marketing sense. It means biochemically matched. The structure influences how hormones interact with receptors in the body, okay? And that affects symptom relief, side effects, risks. And we also have far more data now on cardiovascular risk, bone density, and cognitive health. Okay, so as an example, declining estrogen levels are linked to reduced bone mineral density, which is why resistance training and in some cases HRT can both play roles in reducing osteoporosis risk. So this isn't a black and white conversation. We're also now seeing a shift towards transdermal estrogen like patches and gels, because research shows that they may carry a lower risk of things like blood clots compared to oral forms. So even how HRT is delivered, my words are going, how HRT is delivered matters. And also this is where my world, strength training, comes into this conversation, because we know from decades of research that resistance training is one of the most effective ways to maintain bone density. In fact, studies published in journals like the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research consistently show that load-bearing exercise improves bone strength and reduces fracture risk. So HRT is not the only tool, okay? It is one option with a bigger picture. But this, I think, is where I feel we've gone a little bit off track, because even with all of this information available, a lot of women still don't know what type they're taking, what dose they're on, and what the actual goal from taking it is. And when you actually look at surveys around patient understanding of HRT, there is a clear gap between prescription and education. So being on HRT is not the same as being informed. I'm not pro-HRT and I'm not anti-HRT. I am pro-informed choice, because I believe that women deserve the full history, the benefits, the risks and the alternatives, and then the space to decide what is right for them. Because I know what it feels like to sit in front of someone and ask for help and not be taken seriously. But I also don't think that solution is replacing that with a different kind of certainty. It's just a different voice telling you what to think. We don't help women by removing confusion and replacing it with dogma, okay? We help women by giving them better information and trusting them to use it. And I think that is where this conversation needs to go. And just to say, this is obviously my experience, my perspective as it stands right now. I'm not a GP. We know I'm not a GP. I am not an HRT specialist yet. This is something that I am working on, and you will hear me talk about a lot more because things are happening. But I am someone that's going through this, and I am someone who's been dismissed. And just as a side note, the friendships I lost were women. The GP who dismissed me was a woman. So this is not as simple as men versus women. It is so much more complicated than that. And I think we need to be honest about that if we actually want better conversations. Hopefully this episode has just got you thinking a little bit more critically, asking better questions to yourself, or maybe feeling a little bit less alone. And I believe that is a good place for us to start. So you will hear more from me on this subject. And go and check out my Instagram post to see my thoughts in a snapshot. But as always, stay strong, stay curious, and stay unapologetically powerful. Bye.